This person's problem is not coldness or irresponsibility. Rather, the problem is that he cared too much, calculated too much, and adjusted too much until the fuel on the self side ran out. This person ran for too long. A border collie is a dog that can run endlessly while herding sheep, not fully noticing how much of its own energy is being drained. It cannot stop easily. It cannot rest easily. It can use all of itself to care for the herd. This nickname fits because this person's egogram shows an ultra-high voltage structure far above the general average. He is not powerless. Rather, he may be too warm, think too much, respond too well, and adjust too well. The problem is that these good things are overheated in one direction to the point of harming the self. So the tragedy of this case is not laziness. It is exhaustion so excessive that it is almost noble. Let's look at the core data. The first thing that catches the eye in this graph is the perfect NP score of 50. In an egogram, it is uncommon for one ego state to rise all the way to a perfect score. This number means more than simply being kind. It suggests that the energy to care for, look after, and protect others is almost overflowing. It also suggests that NP may have become the central channel that was automatically called in many scenes of life. This person may have felt his own value most clearly when helping others. I have value when I help others. My life shines when I become someone needed by someone. Senses like these may have been deeply placed inside him. So for this person, care may not have been simple kindness. It may have been an important channel for confirming his own existence, but it does not stop there. A is also very high. FC is high. AC is high. SC is also higher than the general average. In other words, this is not a collapsed structure. It is a structure that works too well. The problem is that all this voltage flows excessively toward others and situations, rather than toward keeping the self alive. If we describe this person's structure in one sentence, it is this: a structure with a strong engine but a weak self-protection circuit. This person did not collapse because of incompetence. Rather, he is likely to be very capable, very warm, quick to respond, and good at adjusting. Because of this, people around him may have seen him as affectionate, smart, good at work, and caring toward people. The problem is that all these strengths may never have been sufficiently organized for this self. There were many good functions, but the boundary that decides how far to use those functions and where to stop may have been weak. So this person's failure is not a failure of deficiency. It is closer to a failure of high output that lost direction. What pushed this person onto the street was likely not disorder or irresponsibility. It may have been the overuse of good functions. The most overwhelming axis is NP. This person may not have been able to simply pass by the difficulties of others. When someone was struggling, he may have felt it as his own problem. When someone lacked something, he may have given his own things. When someone was in difficulty, he may have felt that he had to carry it instead. The scene where, even in the early period of homelessness, he gave other people more cigarettes than his own share symbolically shows this structure. The problem is that this warmth may not have returned sufficiently to himself. He may have cared for others, but not himself. He may have felt others' pain strongly, but noticed his own pain late. He may have filled others' lack, while his own storehouse became empty. There is one more point to notice. For this person, helping others may have been more than simple kindness or habit. It may have been a way to confirm his own value. He may have felt useful when helping someone. He may have felt that his life shone when he became someone needed by another person. Because of this, stopping help is not simply behavior control in this structure. At times, it may feel as if the sense of his own existence is shaking. A is also very high. Usually when A is high, we may expect the person to reduce loss, calculate reality well, and avoid overdoing things. But this person collapsed even with high A. This is a very important clue. His A may have been used more often as a logic that justifies self-sacrifice than as self-protection. For example, it may sound like this. From that person's position, helping now is the right thing. It is okay if I take some loss this time. In this situation, it is better for me to yield. Right now, human relationships are more important than profit. These sentences sound plausible from the outside. They may even be partly true. But if that direction keeps facing only outward, A can become a lawyer explaining bankruptcy, not a calculator that protects life. In other words, this person may have endured not because his thinking was weak, but because his thinking was so strong that it kept explaining even choices that harmed the self. It is also important that FC and AC are both high. This person may originally have had vitality, like being with people, and gained energy from emotional exchange. There may have been romance, human charm, and the power to enliven the atmosphere around him. At the same time, he may also have paid close attention to other people's reactions and felt strong pressure to adjust himself inside relationships. When these two forces meet, the person can look very attractive outwardly. He gets along well with people, he lifts the atmosphere, he cannot easily refuse requests, he adjusts to almost everything, and eventually he becomes more exhausted. In other words, what pushed this person into homelessness may not have been simple poverty or one failure. It may have been a life habit in which good energy always flowed outside the self. From the outside, this person was likely to look very fine. He may have seemed affectionate, lively, smart, quick to read the room, able to get along with people anywhere, and able to somehow manage things when something was entrusted to him. Within society, he may have received evaluations such as a good person, an ace, and someone trustworthy to leave things to. This exact point makes the case more dangerous. Because the outward function looks so good, people around him may have noticed too late how much overload was accumulating inside. So there is a gap between this person's outward appearance and actual structure. Outwardly, he may look like someone who endures well. But actually, he may be someone who gave too much, adjusted too much, carried too much, and stopped too late. When this structure is overlapped with life position, this case is likely to lean toward I'm not okay, you're okay. The evidence on the self side is relatively clear. FC is 39 points, which is also high, but AC is 41 points, and it stands slightly ahead of FC. In other words, desire and vitality are sufficient, but that energy can easily flow first toward adjusting to relationships, atmosphere, and the other person, rather than being used according to one's own desire. Even if he looks lively and capable on the outside, the self side can easily be pushed backward. My share can be taken care of later. Now I need to endure more. If I carry a little more, it will be okay. In this sense, the self side is more likely to lean toward I'm not okay than to stand firmly in I'm okay. The other person's side can be read relatively clearly as you're okay. That is because NP at 50 points stands far ahead of CP at 33 points. He opens warmly toward others first. He feels others' needs strongly. He has a very strong force that wants to maintain relationships. Rather than evaluating or distancing the other person, he easily leans toward understanding, accepting, and helping first. So this is not a structure that aggressively confronts the world. It is closer to a structure that feels the needs of others more strongly than its own needs. In this combination, the mind can easily flow like this. That person is having a harder time than I am right now. If I do a little more, it will be okay. Right now, that side is more urgent than my situation. And it is better for me to adjust than for the relationship to break. Because of this person's collapse did not come from rejecting the world. It is closer to a collapse that came from supporting the world too much. What this person needs is not becoming warmer or leaving harder. First, self-affirmation must recover. I may leave my share for myself. The first task in this case is not raising the voltage further. It is changing its direction. There are 3 core points. First, the direction of NP must be redirected. It must become not NP that only cares for others, but NP that also includes self-care as an obligation. Second, A must be repositioned. If it was used until now as logic that justified self-sacrifice, now it must be used again as a calculator for resource management and boundary setting. Third, S, C, must be made to stand toward the self. There is still enough self-reliance energy inside this person. The problem is that this power scattered into others, relationships, and situations. Now that energy must turn toward these questions. How should I live? What keeps me alive and what collapses me? What this person needs is not removing the good heart. That would deny this person's greatest asset. The core is not suppressing overflowing energy. It is connecting that energy to the right grid. NP must relocate the power to care for others into professional and structured care. A must be used for self-resource management, not for rationalizing self-sacrifice. FC must turn romance and passion into life energy, not relationship exhaustion. AC must build experiences where relationships do not break even after refusal. SC must have the direction that says, now I may live for myself. CP must be used to clearly establish self-boundaries and life principles. For example, a path such as becoming a care worker may allow this person's high NP to be used in a healthy way. If he is preparing to become a care worker, that is a welcome thing. This is because the instinct to care for others can be maintained, while that care is meaningfully placed inside a professional structure and connected to life rhythm, income, and role. In other words, what this person needs is not removing the good heart. It is creating a structure where the good heart leads not to self-destruction, but to productive exhaustion. When helping this person, several points require special care. First, do not give excessive tasks based only on the statement that he will work hard. This person is used to over-operation. Even during recovery, he may try too hard again to become a good user or a person who does well. Second, do not see caring for others only as a sign of recovery. Even after collapse, this person is very likely to still care for others first. That is beautiful but also dangerous. If that habit returns in the old way, it can lead to exhaustion again. Third, advice such as do not leave too kindly does not help. What this person needs is not being forced into coldness. He needs to learn through experience that warmth also needs structure. Fourth, he must practice resting, refusing, and leaving something for himself through actual behavior. This person already knows how to become a good person. The problem may be that he has not yet sufficiently learned how not to ruin himself first while still being a good person. This person's recovery is likely to appear first, not through subtle thawing like the dormouse, but through signals that the direction of energy is changing. For example, these changes may appear. He thinks once before accepting a request immediately. He begins to calculate his own money, his own time, and his own physical strength. He gradually says things like, "That is not my work." He feels less anxiety even when reducing the work of helping others. He gains the experience of being able to endure even when he does not look like a good person. He begins to use his own energy structurally toward job training, self-reliance planning, and life rhythm. These changes do not simply mean becoming less kind. Rather, they are signs that self-destructive goodwill is beginning to change into goodwill that includes self-preservation. When this change begins, this person's high voltage becomes the engine of recovery, not exhaustion. Let me summarize. The egogram of the panting border collie is closer to the graph of a person who collapsed because he gave too much and endured too much, not because he lacked something. This person is overwhelmingly warm. He is also smart. He has a great deal of energy. He has high adaptation power. And he still has the power to stand up again. Because of this, the biggest problem is not deficiency. It is overload that lost direction. The most important question when reading this case is this. Before asking, Why could this person not care for himself? We need to ask, why did this person's good energy always flow only outside the self? When this question appears, this graph begins to look not like a record of exhaustion, but like a map of recoverable voltage.